Nicholas, what do you like about Bodega Bay School?
The activities, everything.
And what would you like to do when you grow up?
Every job in the world.
Congratulations to Nicholas Green.
Italia, e questo è il Quirinale.
A gold medal as a token of regret and thankfulness. Reginald and Margaret Green were presented with the gift by Italy's president during a ceremony in Rome this morning.
It just seemed so obvious to us. Nicholas had had his future taken away from him. It seemed that that future should be given to someone else. In fact, it would have been a terrible act of deprivation, it seems to me, to have not given that future to someone else.
Italy's special tribute to the family is due to the low number of organ donations in that country.
As well as those 7 people who were helped, there's what's been called the Nicholas effect. Donations by other people have increased, and people signing up with organizations.
The tragedy happened as the Greens were touring southern Italy. They were ambushed by highway robbers as Nicholas and his little sister slept in the back seat of the car. Reginald Green decided to outrun his assailants, who fired several shots. For a while, he was unaware that a bullet had struck his son in the head. Nicholas lapsed into a coma and died in a hospital 2 days later.
He was in perfect health, and he had died. So the real Nicholas wasn't in that body anymore. The real Nicholas was somewhere else, in our hearts and our memories. I mean, I still think of Nicholas 100 times a day in his funny little ways. But that body wasn't the essential Nicholas anymore. So we weren't doing anything to harm him, and we were doing something that could help others.
Before he had looked like a sleeping child, and now it was clear that the machines were breathing for him and forcing air into his lungs and keeping his heart going. And so I hated the thought of him being kept alive on those machines after he was dead. We brought Nicholas's body home and we buried him in the cemetery here. We didn't give up anything there. We could have had an open casket. You know, we could still do that.
When kids talked to him, he always listened, and he never ignored them. He almost always had a smile on his face. He always played with kids when no one else would. He was never mean to anybody. Little Nicholas Green from Bodega Bay School was an angel, and obviously a very effective one since he got his job done in only 7 short years. And obviously a very powerful one since his teaching has been felt by not only me, his family, the students, the staff, the community, but entire countries.
We had a lady wrote to us who said that she lost her 4-year-old daughter and imagines that she's playing with Nicholas now in a place where there's no violence. A lot of them say things like, this story has given me hope for a gentler world, or that they've, I can't think about them without tears coming to my eyes. They give their children an extra hug before they go off to school in the morning because they've realized how precious life is. When I went into the hospital on that last day after we'd made the decision, and he was lying on a stretcher, and the first thing I saw when I walked in the room was his freckles. And I thought to myself, I wish they could have used those.
I do feel close to them in a way. You know, they're not Nicholas's organs anymore, they're theirs, but I do feel close to them because we've been able to help them.
There were 7 recipients. That surprised us because, you know, we never thought of that. We're amateurs in this business, thank goodness. But one of them was within 2 days of death. There was a little boy of 15 years old who was only the same size as Nicholas at 7. There was a girl who had been in a deep coma, repeatedly in comas. And then there was a man who got one of the corneas and had been going blind at one time and now can see his children. Wrote us a very moving letter on that subject. So these people were very sick. And of course, for us to know who they were does add an extra dimension, because we've seen the joy in their families' faces and in their own now, that having come back from the shadow of death. And that, of course, is very soothing to us.
In this country, usually it's anonymous. Usually the recipient doesn't know who the donor is, and usually the donor family doesn't know who the recipients are. And they can have anonymous communication. That may change, I don't know.
It helped that we were both together to make that decision. It would have been much more difficult if just I or just Maggie, I think, had been there alone.
When it comes time to make that decision, there could be many family members there who've gathered together to comfort each other. But there may be one who would say, I don't think that's what he would have wanted. Maybe there'll be one person who doesn't agree that donating the organs is the right thing to do, and it can make it much more difficult if they don't know that that's what the person would have wanted. And in a time like that, it's even one voice can make everybody doubt, and it's much more difficult. I think Reg and I were lucky that we did really agree right from the beginning. It was clear to us that that was the right choice.
The procedure was very simple. It appeared to us that they had a protocol all laid out, and all it demanded was that we would sign forms that we had made this decision.
When we did agree, then they had a protocol that they went through, and a regular testing to be sure that there was no mistake, and calling in the specialists and making the arrangements. We really had a sense that they were very careful, they wouldn't make a mistake, and that they'd done this many times and knew just what to do.
It's been a great surprise to Maggie and me to know that signing the donor card is not enough. And I've mentioned this to a number of people now who are equally surprised. We have all thought that once the donor card was signed, that was really automatic from then on. It turns out not to be the case.
If your family doesn't know that you signed it, in any case, they'll be asked in the hospital. They'll go and the doctors will ask them, and it makes such a big difference to them to know that you signed the card and that that's what you think is the right thing to do. They can feel as if they're carrying out your wishes. And it does happen that people sign their donor card and nobody knows, and it makes it much harder for the family to agree. One thing about it is that you really only need to do it once. It's not something you have to keep bringing up. It's, you know, once you've made that decision, if you tell your closest relatives, and it can be a simple discussion and saying, no, that's what you've done, and then they know. And maybe, who knows, maybe they'll decide to sign their donor card too, and it can lead to more, but it's a simple thing to do.
There are 7 or 8 people a day who die in this country for the failure of one organ. What a terrible waste that all seems. There's a waiting list of close to 40,000 people waiting for transplants at any one time. So that although we've seen this in Italy as being a serious problem, it's a worldwide problem. And it's a problem that can be cured, of course.
We thought he was a very special boy. He was a very bright boy, but he was also a very good boy. And I know that this is the decision he would have wanted us to make. So the fact that it is being known by his name seems very appropriate to me. It would have been what he would have done if he'd had the chance.